What's going on, everybody? Today, as you can see here, we're going to have a look at reflexive verbs. And so with reflexive verbs, you're going to have a reflexive pronoun. And really what that means is the action of the verb is actually being reflected back onto the subject. And so one of the things we're going to look at as well in regard to that is reflexive versus non-reflexive. And so I'll show you the difference between using a reflexive verb or using it reflexively, and then you can use it non-reflexively. And so hopefully we're going to make sense of that here in just a minute. But I put some examples. I'm going to write it down here. Examples of reflexive verbs here. Now, if you want more examples, then just have a look down below in the description box. And I'll have some assignments there and some links there so you can of course see the wide-ranging reflexive verbs that exist in this language. And so this is just to sort of give you an idea of the reflexive verbs that are out there. And I also want to do something else with this. I wanted to show you that there's stem changers as well. And when I get to these examples, I'll show you what I mean by that. And obviously we've already gone over stem changers. And if you need a bit of a review, check out the stem changers in the present tense, present indicative, or the stem changers in the preterite. But most importantly, with regard to these, I'm going to be doing them in the present tense. And so, like I said, if you need to refresh what stem changers are, how to make stem changes with a verb, check out that stem changing in the present indicative video. And so hopefully that'll be helpful. But like I said, today I want to focus on reflexive verbs, which, like I said, will come with reflexive pronouns. But before I get into it too deep, I want to show you the other pronouns that we've learned thus far. And so they're right over here. And so we have direct object and indirect object pronouns as well. And so, we've gone over these. We've probably exhausted these. So I'm not going to spend any time on it. I just put it up there so that you could see all of the pronouns together, sort of up here as one big happy family. And so we have the direct object pronouns, the indirect object pronouns. Of course, we've done double object pronouns, which puts these two together. And then now we're looking at reflexive pronouns. And so again, those are going to go along with reflexive verbs. And just to reiterate, again, because we're dealing with, as you can see there, we're dealing with pronouns, a reflexive pronoun. I just want to remind everybody of where pronouns can go in a sentence. And so because these are pronouns, they're going to follow our universal pronoun rules. And that means these pronouns, like these pronouns right here, can go before a conjugated verb, can go attached to a gerund, which, as a reminder, that's your ing, or in Spanish it would be your ando or your yendo, right? That's just sort of what we nickname it, right? And can be attached to an infinitive. And again, an infinitive is an unconjugated verb. And so you can attach these pronouns, just like these pronouns, to all of these three places. Now, I haven't written the fourth place up there, but just for fun, I'm going to put it there. And that fourth place is attached to an affirmative command, right? And I'm just going to write that here, attached to, I'm going to put that there, affirmative command, right? So that means affirmative. So again, you can attach these pronouns as well to an affirmative command. And so if you want to check out the commands, I've got the videos on both formal and informal commands that you can have a look at as well. And so, but I want to bring your attention back to this right here, reflexive versus non-reflexive. You know what? I'm going to change markers. Let's go with plum, right? That looks like plum. And so not really much of a difference, but so I have here as an example, lavarse and lavar. And I'm going to get deeper into these reflexive pronouns, but notice here you have lavar and then you have lavarse, right? That say on the end is letting you know that it is a reflexive verb. There are no such thing as arse verbs, right? We have AR, ER, and IR. So this isn't some radically new verb you're learning about. It's nothing more than the reflexive pronoun being attached to the infinitive. And so, for example, like if you were to go look it up in the dictionary or in a grammar textbook, you would see that the say is sitting there beside, attached to the infinitive. And that's just, like I said, is just saying, hey, I'm a pronoun. I'm a reflexive pronoun. And what you've got to do with me is you have to make agreement both by conjugating the verb itself, but making that pronoun also agree with the subject. And so that's going to reflect the action, or the action in a sense, back onto the subject. And again, we're going to get into that, and that's where these come in, right? And I'll show you how to use these here in a second. And so you would then be reflecting the action back onto the person. So in this example, again, they're just sitting in their infinitive form. So I'm just using this to help you conceptualize what's going on. And so when you see lavarse, or any of these for that matter, in their reflexive form, sitting there with se on the end, again, is reflecting the action back onto the subject. And so this would mean, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the example that we have written here. I'll get back to these later, but as you can see, we've already got it sitting there. And so you would actually have to, as you can see here, the subject of the verb, I'm going to put an S there, the subject of the verb is nosotros. And so now we have to make agreement with subject-verb agreement, of course. So this verb, right, has to agree with nosotros. That's nothing new. But this also now has to agree with the subject nosotros. That's what makes it a reflexive verb and a reflexive pronoun that comes along with that. And that's what makes it different than these, right? These are replacing nouns. And again, if you're still confused about direct and indirect objects, check out that video. But these are replacing a noun in the sentence, a direct and an indirect object noun. This is, again, reflecting the action back onto the subject. So let's have a look here. We have these are our pronoun options, right? And so we're going to try to fill this in. So our options are me, te, se, nos, os, se. Now I know you're thinking to yourself, well, is that did you not make a typo here on the board? No, I didn't. Se and se are the same reflexive pronoun for both the third person singular and third person plural. And so again, just drawing your attention back over here, these are our other pronouns. So you can see how there is some overlap in terms of the actual words, right? And so they're gonna all be used differently, but as you can see, you have me, and me. You have te, and te, right? So on and so forth. So you can see some similarities. Now the third person, of course, is different, and of course it's different here as a reflexive pronoun. But anyways, that was a bit of a tangent, but I want to bring you back to this. So we have me, te, se, nos, os, and se. Now, which one is going to work for nosotros? If you said nos, you were right? Because that is the reflexive pronoun for nosotros, right? And so let's see how that's going to work. Again, we have here just a verb sitting in its infinitive form, so we're going to conjugate it, which means we're going to put the pronoun before the conjugated verb, and then we're going to have the conjugated verb. So I'm going to put the P here for pronoun, and then we'll just call it CV. Why not? Conjugated verb. And so, again, both the pronoun and the conjugated verb are going to agree with the subject. Again, just to reiterate, that is what makes it a reflexive pronoun, right? And a reflexive verb for that matter. And so lavar is going to become lavamos, right? I know you guys already knew that. And then se, because we've got to put it in the sentence here, has to agree with the subject. The subject is nosotros. So we would put nos. So nosotros nos lavamos las manos después de ir al baño. We wash our hands after going to the bathroom, right? That's what you're saying. And so notice here I have nosotros nos lavamos las manos. We don't have to say nuestras manos. You can, but you don't have to, because it's implied and understood. Why? Well, because the action is being done to this individual as it is. So we're saying we wash ourselves the hands, right? I know that in English makes no sense, right? But we wash ourselves the hands after going to the bathroom. And that's really how reflexive pronouns work. Again, it's reflecting the action back. So we are washing ourselves the hands. I know, that doesn't make sense in English. But, and so that's how this works reflexively. The other thing I want to do before I go exclusively into using reflexive verbs is looking at how this works non-reflexively. In other words, reflexively is saying, for example, I'm going to draw it over here, yo me lavo las manos, right? Just sort of working off of this sentence we have here. Yo me lavo las manos. And so that's me saying, I wash myself the hands, right? And so I'm saying I wash my hands. Now, we all know that you can, wash your hands, but you can also wash the dishes, right? And that would be non-reflexive. And so I'm going to use this black marker I have here and just put yo lavo los platos. Now, what's the difference? Well, yo me lavo las manos is me washing something on my body, my hands, right? And so I'm saying yo me lavo las manos, right? Now, washing dishes is, of course, first of all, I don't have a dish attached to me. I would be washing an object. I would be washing something, and of course, it's non-reflexive. I'm not reflecting the washing back on me, right? And so that's why I say yo lavo, which is using the same verb you have here. I'm just using it non-reflexively, right? And so I'm just simply saying I wash the dishes or I wash the plates, right? And so that's the difference between, washing my hands and washing dishes, right? Now, you can say, I wash the car. Yo lavo el carro. Again, that would be non-reflexive, right? As opposed to saying, to use this over here, yo me cepillo los dientes, right? Which is going to be this one right here, right? And so, I know that was using two different verbs, but the point of the matter is saying lavo el carro, right? I wash the car is non-reflexive because I'm not doing that back to myself, right? As opposed to saying I brush my teeth, right? Which is what this means. Me cepillo, yo me cepillo los dientes, right? And so, I know it's not misspelled. I just left out half the S. So, me cepillo los dientes is saying I brush myself the teeth, just like I said here, we wash ourselves the hands. And again, I know that sounds ridiculous in English, but I'm doing that so you can understand and get a sense of the way these reflexive verbs work. And so again, like I said, just to look at it reflexively versus non-reflexively, and to summarize so I can move along, non-reflexive means you're not doing it to yourself, or he or she is not doing it to himself or herself or ourself or yourself, right? Or any of that. And so, whereas reflexively would mean he, she, or it is doing it to himself or herself or ourself or yourself or myself, right? And that verb is being used in that way. So now, as I've shown you here, you can use a verb like lavar or lavarse in a reflexive or a non-reflexive way. That's not to say all verbs can be used that way. There's just a lot of them that can be, right? And so, again, I'm going to show you these, and I'm going to explain how some of them can be used reflexively and non-reflexively. But like I said, if you want a bit more practice, check out what I put in the description box. So, like I said, I want to draw your attention over to the those verbs I have there, and let's see, we're gonna use green, right? We really haven't given green too much of a chance yet. And so we have here me, te, se, nos, os, se. Those are our reflexive pronouns, and that pronoun will agree with the subject of the sentence, right? And that's what makes it unique and makes it reflexive, right? And so let's have a look here. Now, as you can see, I said green, and this magically turned into plum. So did you see that magic trick? Right? Okay, so we have dormirse, right? And then I put O to UE. We have sentirse, and I put E to IE. I put sentarse, E to IE, and so on and so forth. All I'm saying is, hey, these verbs, yes, they're reflexive, but they're also stem changers. So again, things start to get a bit more complicated when we want to conjugate these verbs because, of course, you have to conjugate the end. If it's a stem changer, you have to make the change in the stem. And if it's a reflexive, we have to agree with the subject. And again, if you need a review on conjugating verbs, check out the video. If you're still a little shaky on stem changers, again, check out the video. And then, hopefully this video will be helpful for reflexives. And so, like I said, there's your pronoun list. Dormirse, for example, means to fall asleep, right? Now, dormir is to sleep, right? Whereas dormirse means to fall asleep, right? And so, lavarse is to wash, right? Again, that was our example, to wash oneself. Sentirse is to feel, right? Like I feel good. And again, we have an example of using that here. I'm feeling good, right? Sentarse means to sit, right? To sit down. Levantarse means to get oneself up. Now you can use levantar, as many of you probably already know, non-reflexively, which would mean to lift something, right? So, when you use it reflexively to translate it directly, you are lifting yourself up in a sense. Whereas if you just use it like levantar pesas, for example, and I'll write that down just for those of you who want to visually see what I'm talking about. I think I'm going to use plum again. I really like this color. And so we can say, for example, we've got levantarse here, but I'm going to use it here as well. And then this is going to serve as a really good review. And so I can say, let's do two. Tú te levantas a las 9 de la mañana, of course. Tú te levantas a las 9 de la mañana. Now notice what we did here. We have levantarse, right? It's an AR verb. It's just a regular AR verb, right? And then we have tú is our subject. Of course, the reflexive pronoun has to agree with the subject. That's why we put te, because it agrees with tú, right? Bring you back over here. And then you have levantas, which, as you know, and it's kind of hard to tell that was an S, but as you know, levantar as an AR verb in the present indicative is levantas. So you conjugate this to agree with the subject. The reflexive pronoun also agrees with the subject. And then, you have I'm going to put AM there just for fun, de la mañana. So tú te levantas a las 9 de la mañana. Now let me show you how to do that non-reflexively. So we're going to put an R there because that means reflexive. Why not? Right? And then we'll do NR, which is non-reflexive. And so now I no longer want to say, you lift yourself up at 9 a.m. or you wake up at 9 a.m., of course. But I want to say, you lift weights, right? And so to lift weights is levantar pesas, pesas being, the weights. And so we would just simply say, tú levantas pesas todos los días. You lift weights every day. So notice that this is what is being lifted in this case, not yourself, right? Tú. So it's non-reflexive. There's no reflecting anything back onto you in this case, right? And so you are just simply lifting weights. And so hopefully that makes sense there. moving right along, we have acostarse, and I'm just putting there the ODUE to remind you that acostar is an ODUE stem change. And so to say, I go to bed, right? Which, as you can see, we have this here, right? And this subject for this one is to. But to say, I go to bed at, let's say, midnight, you would say, me acuesto a la medianoche, right? Me acuesto a la medianoche. So I am, in effect, putting myself to bed at midnight, right? Now, you can also put your children to bed if you have children, right? You can put your dog to sleep if you want, like, you know, you read your dog a nighttime story or something. I don't know. But we're going to stick with children because that other one example seemed a little odd. And so, me acuesto a la medianoche. So let's just say now we want to put our son to sleep, for example. You can say, acuesto, right? I put to bed a mi hijo a las 8, right? So maybe you're putting your child to bed at 8 and then you're up till midnight, right? For some, you know, because you got to knock out some work. So, acuesto a mi hijo a las 8 de la noche. So notice, this one is non-reflexive and this one is reflexive. Why? Because in the first one, you are putting yourself to bed. You are reflecting the action back onto you. Whereas in this one, you're doing something to someone or something else, right? And that's what makes it non-reflexive. Now, I want to bring you to these two, right? These are really fun. And then despertarse, just for the record, is a synonym for levantarse. And so they would work in the same way. But just note that despertar is an E to I stem changer. So, me despierto, te despiertas, usted se despierta, nosotros nos despertamos, ustedes se despiertan, right? And so that would be how that is conjugated. And so, but I want to focus on ponerse and quitarse, and I'm going to change it up and go with, this is like burnt orange, actually. So let's see what this looks like on the board. And so ponerse means, again, ponerse as a reflexive verb means to put on, like to put on clothes, for example. It can also mean to become, like, or get, like I'm getting angry, for example. So ponerse as a reflexive, I like that color. Ponerse as a reflexive takes on a different meaning than the verb poner non-reflexive. Poner non-reflexive means to put. So you put the computer on the desk. We'll use tu, so because it said you. Tu pones la computadora sobre la mesa, or in la mesa, right? So, tu pones la computadora sobre la mesa, right? And so you are putting it on, sobre, or in, right, above. And so, anyways, you would do that non-reflexively because, again, you are pones la computadora sobre la mesa. You're putting the computer on the table. The action is on the computer, not on you. If you want to make this reflexive, you then can say, me pongo la ropa, right? And I'll put that on right there here. Yo me pongo la ropa, right? I'm putting myself on the clothes. I know that sounds weird, but that's how it's done reflexively. So, tú te pones la ropa. Nosotros nos ponemos la ropa, right? We put the clothes on. And so, again, like I said, ponerse does mean to put on clothes, but it can also mean to become or to get. Like, me pongo enojado cuando no tomo café por la mañana, right? I'm gonna use a different colored marker to write that, but I'm just basically saying I get mad if I don't drink coffee in the morning, or we get mad if we don't drink coffee in the morning, something like that. For those of you who need coffee in the morning, you probably are like, yeah, that's a great example. So I'm gonna write it right here. Nosotros nos ponemos enojados si no tomamos café, right? Nosotros nos ponemos enojados. Now keep in mind, this is also agreeing with that, right? It's describing how we become. Nosotros nos ponemos enojados si no tomamos café. So again, you have this being used as to put on clothes. You have this being used to become or get mad, for example. And then you can, like I said, I'll write out what I was saying earlier. Pongo la computadora sobre la mesa, or encima de la mesa, if you want to use that, preposition. So, pongo la computadora sobre la mesa, right? So I'm putting something, not myself, not ourself or yourself or whatever. And so this is being used if you're saying to yourself, oh, that's non-reflexive. Well, you're right, and you got it. And so I'm going to go ahead and put an R there. We're going to put an R here, and we're going to put an R here. Now, quitarse is used in much of the same way. Just quitarse means to take off. So you could say, me quito la ropa. Tú te quitas la ropa. Nosotros nos quitamos la ropa. Ustedes se quitan la ropa. So that's how that would be used, right? And so ponerse in regards to clothes is to put on. Quitarse, again, in regards to clothes, is to take off. And so, again, I don't need to write out every single conjugation of all of these verbs, but like I said, quitar, just for the record, is a good old-fashioned regular AR verb. So you'll make subject-verb agreement, and of course, you have to get that that reflexive pronoun in there and make that agree as well. And so let's have a look at some examples, and we'll bring this to a close. And so I'm going to use, I'm a big fan of the plum. I think we're going to go with the plum. So we already did number 1, and now we're going to go to number 2. So we have Joe, and notice that it's sitting here, and it's, infinitive form, just hanging out with the AR, and then it's letting you know that it's a reflexive, right? And so let's have a look at this. So we have Joe, and then again, I'm just going to go ahead and write this here, pronoun and then conjugated verb, just to give you a visual here. Yo, and then levantarse a las 8 de la mañana todos los días. This is great, but we're not worried about that right now. We want to dial this in. And so we have say here, but what is the subject? The subject is yo, so we have to agree with it, and we use me, right? So we'll put me there, right? And then we have levantar. What's our subject? Yo. So we want to say levanto. Yo me levanto a las 8 de la mañana todos los días. Well, that was fun. So let's look at number 3. We have sentirse. That was one of the ones that I had right here. It means to feel, right? And so let's see how we feel here. Or in this case, ellos. So ellos sentirse muy bien hoy. They feel really great today. That's awesome. And hopefully you do too as you're watching this video. Ellos, and again, I'm going to go ahead and put P for pronoun. We can even go even more detailed and put RP for reflexive pronoun. And then we're going to go CV for the conjugated verb. And then, of course, we have muy bien hoy. We'll put a period there, just for grammar's sake. So ellos, right, now we have third person plural. So we're looking at this, right? So we want to have say there for our reflexive pronoun. And then we have sentir. Now have a look at this. I indicated earlier that sentir was an E to IE stem change. And so again, for those of you who are still struggling a little bit with the stem changers, have a look at that video. But we're going to move on. And so ellos say, and then it's an E to IE stem changer, right? That's where the action happens. And so now we have, just so you know, this has to agree with the subject. This has to be conjugated to agree with the subject. And the stem changes because it's a stem changer. And so notice there's a lot going on. And so we have ellos say, and then we have an E to IE because it's ellos. And then this is going to become EN, of course. So, ellos se sienten muy bien hoy. Now I know that was a lot going on, and so hopefully by highlighting all the different things that were happening, you know, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And so we're going to move on to number 4. Ustedes siempre cepillarse los dientes antes de dormir, right? So what we're saying here is you all always brush your teeth before going to sleep. So remember, we're reflecting that action back on to yourself. We're not saying you always brush the dog before you go to sleep. That would be non-reflexive. Okay, so ustedes siempre, and again, we have to take a look at that. So we have ustedes. So again, we're doing third person plural. So again, I like the RP. So we're going to put that there. And then we know that's say at this point, third person plural. Cepillar, not a stem changer, which is a relief. And then we have a regular AR verb. And so what is a regular AR verb for ustedes? Would be cepillan, right? And so that's what you get there. Ustedes siempre se cepillan los dientes antes de dormir. All right. And I managed to put a period there. So congrats for me. So número 5, I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I'm making a question here. And so we have a qué hora. So now I'm asking a question. So a qué hora, and then acostarse to, that's our subject, right? Notice that it's back here because when we ask a question and we want to use a subject pronoun, we put it behind the verb, right? A simple old school one that you guys are used to is ¿de dónde eres tú? Right? ¿Cómo te llamas tú? So I'm not doing anything different here, right? And by the way, ¿cómo te llamas is a use of a reflexive. And so you've been learning reflexive for quite some time. Now we're getting formal here. Now you're formally learning. And so, a qué hora acostarse. Now notice we have, there it is, acostarse is an O to UE stem changer. So we've got stem change, reflexive pronoun needs to agree, and we have the conjugated, of course. And so we have our reflexive pronoun, we've got our ending, and then this right here needs to become UE, right? And of course, this needs to agree with to. So AR, present tense, to. And then of course, what is this reflexive pronoun going to be for to? Well, we'll come over here. It's sort of buried at this point, but there's te, right? And so we're going to do our reflexive pronoun, which is te. And then we have acostarse, so it'd be acuestas, right? Acuestas. Now, I'm going to pull out another color just so I can pick this apart a little bit. Because maybe some of you are, you know, that was a lot, like this one up here. And so notice this is our reflexive pronoun, te, agreeing with, of course, our subject to. The as is also agreeing with to. It is just the AR to conjugation for a present tense AR verb, nothing crazy there. And then the O to UE, right? And so we did that stem change there. Now, that is pretty much reflexive verbs in a nutshell. And so hopefully this was helpful for you all. We really made a mess, if you can see, but you know, all these different colors makes it a lot more exciting. But nevertheless, I hope this was helpful, and you know, best of luck. And again, if you need any help, additional help, check out the links in the description box. Thank you, and adios.